Hey, what's up? This is Seth Mosley, and you're listening to the Full Circle Music Show, the why of the music biz. Today, we've got a great guest in studio with us today, Seth Morrison, guitarist for the band Skillet. Yes, you've heard of them, you've seen them, probably at a festival headlining with pyro going off, selling platinum records around the world, touring all around the world, countries like Russia, Czech Republic, everywhere you can possibly imagine. Seth has been there with the band Skillet, so we're really thankful for him taking an hour out of his busy schedule to come down and share his story with us. It's actually a really, really powerful one. I've known Seth for a long time, from back in our Southern Ohio days, and to hear his full story of how he actually got connected with the band Skillet and how he had a mentor early on that kind of helped show him the ropes and teach him about the music business, teach him about being a successful musician. And he's going to share that with us today. And make sure, if you haven't already had the chance, if you like the show, you like what you've heard, head over to iTunes, give us a good rating and a good review. It really means a lot to us, and it helps us get the word out. Still getting this thing off the ground. Use your help. So head over to iTunes and leave us a good rating and review. And at the end of the show, we're going to talk about this awesome little thing that Seth has created for any of you fans out there, maybe of his, or if you haven't heard of him and you are a musician wanting to learn how to get into the music business, maybe want to get into a band, a guitar player wanting to get better at your craft, Seth has created a free guide, the top tips for making a living in the music business. Again, that's the top tips for making a living in the music business. Talks about chasing your dreams, not letting pessimism get in the way. And that's a really valuable thing. So go over to fullcirclemusic.org/guitar. fullcirclemusic.org/guitar. And Seth has created that free guide there for you. It's another way you can get in touch with him. And he talks about giving guitar lessons over Skype too. That's something that he does. So if you guys are interested in that, head over again to fullcirclemusic.org/guitar. Sign up there. He'll send you some info about that. And without further ado, let's get into the show. Full Circle Music Show. We're here in studio with guitarist from the band Skillet, Seth Morrison. Thanks for being here with us today.
Yeah, man, of course. Excited about it.
So you've been in Skillet coming up, was it 5 years now?
Yeah, it'll be, I could give you an exact date.
Yeah, give me the exact date.
I flew out 5 years ago. It'll be 5 years, April the 6th.
Flew out from where to where?
Flew out from Ohio to meet up with the band, and we're in a mid-tour in Texas somewhere. The only thing I remember about initially getting out there is it felt like we were in Texas forever. So
you remember the exact date. That kind of says to me was a pretty big deal at the time.
Of course, yeah. You know, it was my dream, and you have the benefit of kind of knowing me before all that, Seth to Seth.
Yeah.
So it was something I had felt called to do in my life and wanted to do for a long time. So yeah, you tend to remember all of the little minute details and when something monumental happens like that in your life,
Yeah. How did that come about? I mean, were they hosting auditions, or was it like a word of mouth kind of thing, or how did you initially get the gig?
You want me to, can I give a little backstory and just
Absolutely.
kind of ramble for a little
Absolutely.
bit? So just a little backstory about me. As you know, I'm from a very, very small town in Ohio, probably population of, I don't even know if it would hit 7,000, Wheelersburg.
That's including the deer and cats and dogs, right?
Including the deer and the deer hunters that come in during deer hunting season.
Yeah.
No, I don't even know if it hit 7,000. Wheelersburg, Ohio. So I grew up in a musical family. My parents had a country gospel, Southern gospel group. So all I really ever knew from the time that I started having memory was being on a bus every weekend, touring with them. Not really touring. They were it was like the weekend warrior thing, So leave on Saturday morning or whatever, get back Sunday night.
Southern gospel prepared you well for the guitar that you're playing now in Skillet, I'm sure.
Exactly. Yeah, that's when I tell people that, it's kind of I get kind of a deer in the headlights look.
I can imagine.
My dad's his main instrument is pedal steel guitar, so he's,
awesome.
I have some country roots, like old country,
Yeah.
but he can play anything with strings, so. But I started playing guitar around like 6th grade age, so like age 12, I guess, 12, 13, and just my dad kind of got me rolling with it, and then I just kind of took off from there. By the time I was in junior high, I was really going strong with, you hit your high school age, and then you kind of start thinking like, oh, what am I going to do post high school? What's my life going to be, So I really felt passionate and felt called to do music, but you never really know in what way, shape, or form that can take shape, I mean, I started playing, at age 13 in my first band, just locally, in a band called 3PO, which you remember, Seth, probably, with a really good friend named Micah Schweinsberg, a great drummer that I grew up with. We played in our first bands together. So 13, I kind of did that until I was about a sophomore in high school, I guess, and then just kept playing as much as I could. Also played in other Christian rock bands here and there, but it was nothing full time. It was just basically just playing because you love it and when you can. So as I got older and progressed in high school, hit my senior year, and it kind of started thinking like, what am I going to do? Am I going to go to college? Am I going to, I don't know, move to Nashville? What am I going to do? I did go to college for a quarter, but felt, I know so many, and I'm not, I don't want to discourage from college right now. That may sound like what
I discourage from college.
Okay.
I didn't go to college.
Because that isn't what I want to do.
Hey, feel free, man. We're all about making your own, and blazing your own
my
path,
thing was, I went for a quarter, and I just knew so many people that went to college and didn't have any idea why they were going, and they just kept going year after year after year, and before you know it, they're in thousands of dollars of debt with still no clear.
Man, you hit the nail on a really good point, and I don't think any of our guests has talked about that yet, and I probably have never articulated it that well, but there's so many people who go to college and have no clue why they're going.
Yeah, it just kind of becomes, which is fine. I mean, a lot of, like I said, monumental things can happen in your college years, but I just didn't want to get into thousands of dollars of debt because I knew what my passion was. I knew what I wanted to do, and music was it, and it's what I felt called to do. So typically what I say, though, is unfortunately in music, unless you're going to be like a music teacher or something, making a living in this industry, being a writer or a musician or in a band, it's not like any other job where you go to college, get the degree, go apply for that. I couldn't go get a degree to be a touring musician and then go apply. It means I'm going to get a gig in a popular band or whatever. It doesn't work like that. So what I did, I went to college for a quarter. It was fine. Just wasn't really feeling it. So I dropped out. Started working for my dad full time. My dad owned a business in our small town, so I worked for him full time. And what I started doing, because you always hear, really in any job, but especially in the music industry, connections. Who you know, and it's like I said, it's like that in any job, but especially in the music industry, very much so. So what I would do, whether when I got home from work from my dad or just in the meantime, I would just try to find anybody I could. At the time, this would have been 07, 08, so MySpace was still cool, I guess.
Yeah, MySpace, man.
It was still a thing.
About that.
So whether I was trying to find Facebooks or MySpace or whatever, I would try to find just people I knew. Like if I liked an artist, I would look up their touring band. If I liked a band, I'd just try to see if I could reach out to anybody, on a personal basis or whatever. So did this a lot. Most of the time never got replies, just never got responses. But one day, I'd always been, I'm 28. If you liked Christian music, you grew up a DC Talk fan, you had to.
Yet another thing in common. I'm turning 28 this year.
That's crazy.
We'll do that later. We'll do that later in the episode where we go down the list of how many things the two Seths can find in common. But back to your story. You're 28.
Yeah. So around this, I guess 06, 07, 08, I would have been, 19, 20, I guess. So Toby was solo at that point. Seen him a lot at festivals, whatever. I always noticed his guitar player, Tim. He always had, just little guitar-y things. He had a great tone live, great stage presence. He did blah, 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 all that stuff. So I knew who he was. So I found that he had a MySpace. One day, sent a message, as I always did, just, hey, I'm 19 years old, whatever I was at that time, and I feel called to do this. I want to do this for a living. Let me know sometime you'd want to meet up or whatever. Like I said, most of the time never got a reply. I was driving somewhere, and you know how you get an email notification that like so-and-so has sent you a message on whatever, MySpace, Facebook. Well, he sent me a message back. So I got to where I was going, immediately checked it, and I had some stuff I'd played on, just demo stuff. He's like, yeah, man, listen to some of the stuff on your profile. It seems like you're a rock guy, you know? So I was like, oh, wow, he actually took the time to listen to it or whatever. And he said, let me know if you're ever going to be in Nashville. If I'm off the road, we could meet up for coffee or something. I was like, man, nobody's ever done this yet, you know?
Wow, that is awesome.
As you'll hear in this story, I have a pessimistic side of me a little bit. So I was like, when the rubber meets the road or whatever, he'll probably flake or whatever, you know? So anyway, a couple months later, I was going to be down here just visiting some friend, and Micah, the same friend, had moved here, had been living here, and was playing out with a group. So I would come down from time to time and visit him and his family. So one day, I knew I was going to be coming down, so I sent him another message. I said, hey, I'm going to be coming down. Would you want to meet up? He hit me right back, said, yeah, let's meet at... I even remember the Starbucks. He was living over around Antioch area at the time, so it was a Starbucks. I'll never forget it. It was a fall day. I was so nervous about driving down the whole time. We met, and he really just talked with me like we talked about some guitar stuff, but we were there for like an hour, and he just kind of mentored me on the ins and of what it's like to do this for a living. You know, every little detail that people don't normally talk about, which we can kind of brush on here in a little bit. Yeah. So he prayed with me at the end, and it was such a, I say strange feeling. It was like a divine feeling of like, I'm telling you, when I left, I told my mom, I said, I really feel like something is going to come of this relationship.
Wow.
And I had zero idea. I mean, maybe it was just going to be a friendship that would grow. And
sure.
So yeah, we kept in touch after that. And every time Toby was close, I would go hang with him at shows. I thought I was on cloud nine, you know, he'd get me passes, and they did like Winter Jam 09 or something like, yeah, I think it was 09. And I, you know, had a backstage pass to whatever this tour. I was like, it was like, this is amazing.
Right.
So anyway, all that time, kept working for my dad full time. I was playing at church every Sunday on the worship team. Just played as much as I could, and just kept in touch with Tim. I got to be the age of like 21, 22. Those times for me where I kind of hit like, man, what am I doing? You know, like I'm working full time, but I don't have any like clear cut picture of what I'm going to do. You know, I want to do music, but there's nothing that seems to be coming of anything. And it just felt so unattainable and unreachable, you know, like, is this really ever going to happen? So just kept plucking away, man. And just, no pun intended there, plucking away, kept playing. And I remember I had this one moment, I guess this would have been 2010. I was working for my dad full time. I don't really tell this a lot when I'm telling this story. I'll sometimes get choked up talking about it, but it was like, you ever have those moments like when, I don't know, you just feel God's presence just kind of just flood. Yeah. And I was at work, working on a counter at my dad's business, and I think it was the Revelation song that came on. I just like started weeping. Wow. I had to run to the bathroom and just like, I mean, I was just weeping like a baby and flooding. Wow. And I just felt like this, probably the closest thing to hearing God's audible voice I've ever heard. I just felt him saying, just hang on just a little bit longer. Wow. And it was as clear. And I didn't have any leads at that time. I was just like, I don't know what that means, you know? But it was one of those times where I was feeling kind of like, oh, what am I doing with my life? I'm almost 22. I could have been done with college. I could have, you know. So like probably a half a year later, I had a random friend from my hometown text me and say, Skillet's guitar player is leaving. You should inquire about this. And I'm like, here we go. Pessimistic side of me again. I'm like, it's like a caliber of this band has probably already found someone long, but you know what I mean?
Sure.
That's what I was thinking. So the only connection I had was Tim, really. I mean, he was really the only guy that I had ties to that was in the industry and, doing it. So I sent him a text and I said, hey, man, I just heard about this. See what you can find out. Well, the cool thing was the year before, in 2010, Skillet and Toby did a big co-headlining tour, like for the most of that year. It was a pretty big, successful tour.
Yeah.
So, there's a relationship there.
Yeah,
between
I remember that tour. Yeah.
So I hit him up and he's like, man, yeah, let me see what I can find out. I don't know what happened from there exactly. I should ask him, but I don't know if I don't know if he got John's number from Toby or Toby reached out. The only thing I know is the next day I had an email from our production manager, his name's Scotty. It was a mass email. It was just saying, as you know, Skillet's looking for a guitar player. So it just had all this criteria, like send a video of you playing these songs, these solos, send a headshot of yourself, send a bio. And I was like, I was just kind of overwhelmed.
And you probably didn't have any of that put together, right?
Absolutely not. No. Yeah. No, this was like, I hadn't even heard back from Tim.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I assumed that this is how they knew of me. So, man, I left work. I worked a typical 8 to 4 at my dad's. I left work, went to my church, got my cousin, who's really good at video and, putting together all that stuff. So I got to work on it that night, did pictures, bio. And as I was at my church getting ready to start making my video, that pessimistic side of me again, just, I just always like, there's probably nothing going to come of this. But I really felt like I needed to do this. Like, I felt like I owed it to God and owed it to myself that I was supposed to do this. So I went into a side room at my church and just prayed before I started. And I was honest. I said, God, I don't expect anything really to come of this, but I feel like you're telling me to do it, so I'm going to do it. When I send all this stuff in, I'm going to leave it in your hands, and you take it and do what you want with it. And when you pray an honest prayer like that, big things can happen.
Yeah.
I prayed, sent it in, didn't hear back for a few days, and then got an email back from John. Actually, it was just like a mass email. Saying that they had brought someone else out to try them out. So at that point, I was at peace with it. I was like, well, I didn't get it, but I'm at peace with it because I felt like I was supposed to do it. Who knows what doors it could open. About a week or two later, this is crazy. Again, Toby was in Ohio, in Dayton, Ohio, playing a show. So I went out to hang out with Tim. I was standing with Tim, and he was like checking his voicemail or something. And I thought, he was checking a text or voicemail from his wife. So I was on my phone doing whatever. He like hits me. He's like, pfft. I'm like, what? He's like, listen to this. He puts his phone up to my ear, and John had just left him a voicemail saying, hey, Tim, it's John from Skillet. I just wanted to talk to you about your friend Seth. And I was standing there when he got the voicemail. I was just like, this is bizarre. So again, we stopped kind of right there on our tracks and just prayed that, kind of just started reminiscing on like all the years from that initial meeting in Starbucks. Didn't have a clue what that relationship was going to lead to. And, just kind of all the things that he had kind of been there for me through. So we just stopped right there and just prayed that God had taken it this far. And we just kind of prayed,
yeah,
if it's your will, take it the rest of the way. So,
yeah.
I got off work. I sent all this stuff in. I had heard back that they were trying someone else out. I thought I didn't get it. I was getting off work at 4:00. I had a call that I didn't answer because it was a random area code, or whatever. Then got a message that was Scotty, the production manager, calling me. So I called him back immediately. I was like, why didn't I answer this? So called him back and got him, and he was in a dead spot. I could make out about every fifth word he was saying. It was miserable. This whole night was miserable. But the only thing I can make out is, when can you fly out? That's the only thing I got from like a 10-minute conversation. And I just played it cool. I didn't want to, I didn't ever talk to him. I don't want to be like, man, I can't hear you. I can't hear you.
Right.
So I just went the rest of the evening. Didn't know where I was flying or why I was flying.
Right.
So anyway, that night, fast forward, it's just crazy because I just got off work at 4:00. And then like midnight that night, John and Scotty called me on a conference call. Wow. And I was laying on the couch watching SportsCenter, as I still do every night. And they were just basically like, things just didn't go well with it at all, really, with who we were trying out. And they were just like, when can you fly out, kind of thing, So literally 2 days later, I flew to Texas and it was just such a whirlwind of a time. It was
Yeah.
like 2 days earlier, I didn't know I was in this state of, I felt that voice just saying, just hang on a little bit longer. And it was a whirlwind of a time.
Yeah.
So I flew out, finished the tour. Everything went well. John came to me at the end of the tour, said, man, we really like having you out. We're going to keep you on for the summer. And that's kind of the last talk we had like that. And here I am 5 years later.
Wow.
But, like, and you can chime in on this too if you want. I always get asked a lot, like, being a guitar player in the industry, what's it like? How do you get there? One of the things that when I listened to that voicemail from John, when Tim left to go call him back, after the show I got with Tim, I'm like, what did he say? And he's like, he didn't really ask much in the way of guitar playing, or what his exact words were like, Tim, I know he can nail the parts. I know he can play. I've seen his video. That's obvious. He's not going to have any trouble playing. His priority questions were, where's his heart? What's he like? What's he like to live with on the road? What's he like to be around? I do take pride in who I am as a guitar player. It's what I do. So, you always want to be the best at your craft, whether that's nailing a great tone or nailing the parts. But, I think in something I do and what I take the pride in too is having a servant's heart to be around on the road and just being an easy person to be around and being a team player and being that person on the road. I think I take equally as much pride in as being a great guitar player, or having a great look, which is important for, doing this full time. But I find that when I meet people, for example, I teach at Camp Electric sometimes, and I always touch on this. I'm like, and this is so true, and I kind of understood it before I got in the industry, but now I definitely understand it, is when kids ask, you have these kids that can play 1,000 miles an hour and they can sweep hit, or, they have all the tools, of being a great guitar player. But I always tell people, if I meet, say, 2 people and I hear of somebody looking for a gig, person A is an amazing player. They can do anything you ask them to do, but they know that they're great. You know what I mean? Like, so that comes across in their personality. They may be, a little bit of a conceited side or something. And then I meet person B that's also a great player. Maybe they can't do all the little tricks and whatever that person A can do, but person B just has a servant's heart, has a great personality. I can see that they would be easy to live with on a bus. I can see that they'd be easy to be around, and they can hit all the parts. I mean, who am I going to recommend? Who am I going to put my name out on the line for? You know what I mean? Obviously, person B, who servant's heart, easy to be around. So
Right.
that's what I've found is very important in doing this for a living. And
Totally. That's awesome, man. What a great story. I think I'm inspired just hearing it. The fact that, how long would you say it was from when you had that meeting with Tim in Starbucks to when you got that phone call and you were laying on the couch? How much time went by?
It was fall of '08 is when we initially met, and I got the call in early April of 2011. So that friendship really grew, and
so 2.5 years.
2.5, yeah, so 2.5, 3 years, and went through some, like things in my life, like just where you think your life's going down this path, and then a hard right turn is pulled, and you're like, why is this happening? Or and that can be for anything. People go through hard things, whether it's a death in the family, tragedies come in all forms, or just when you don't understand why things are happening. And and Tim was there. I remember when I was going through like my personal thing, like, is this worth it? I called Tim and I'm like, man, am I good enough to even do this? And when you look at me and you listen to me, whatever, can I really? And that's when I was going kind of through my traumatic time in my life. And he just paused for a second on the phone and he was like, yes. Now, that's kind of all he said. He's like, yes, you are.
Yeah.
He just kind of encourage me through all of that.
Sometimes that's all you need is just the affirmation.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's all I needed, just to kind of to just keep the dream alive. It would have been very easy to just give up and go work at UPS or go, whatever. It would have been very easy to just cave. But I just kind of I made the decision just to have faith through all that. Faith isn't always an easy thing, but I kind of just tested it, and I just kind of, because what else do you have in times like that? What else are you going to do? So I just kind of put it to practice and just said, God, I'm trusting that this is what I want to do. This is my absolute 120% passion to do this, and just trusted through all of it. And even if I would have thought I was going to get to do this for a living, I never would have dreamed that I would have been doing it on this scale.
Yeah, I mean, that's, you talk about 5 years later, 130 shows a year, platinum records, touring really every square inch of the earth.
Yeah, I mean, never would have thought I'd touring in Russia and all over Europe, just seeing all the beautiful cities of the world.
I mean, you guys have even had like dolls made after you in Russia, right? Isn't that crazy?
Our Russian fans are quite passionate about Skillet, so
that's amazing.
I've even had like the Cadbury chocolate. They've somehow got like a Cadbury chocolate bar with my name on it.
Do you have a picture of that?
I think I put it up on my Instagram, maybe.
I gotta see that. That's amazing.
I haven't eaten it yet, though. I don't want to eat it.
No, of course not.
But yeah, man, like literally, like I've met, like, and toured with and played shows with like some of my biggest guitar heroes. It's bizarre, and like it's just bizarre to me to still sit here and think about it. Like, I was a kid of the teenager of the early 2000s or whatever, so I would. The guitar player Mark Tremonti was one of my biggest like guitar inspirations.
Absolutely, yeah.
So like now to have played a lot of shows with them, and
right, because Skillet has toured with Creed, right?
They toured with Creed right before I joined, but after I joined, we played a lot with Alter Bridge, which is his other band.
Yeah,
I toured with them in Europe. You're not toured with them, but played shows with them in Europe.
That's awesome.
And we're part of, we're both Paul Reed Smith guitar and Dorsey's, so there's that connection there. So,
well, how cool is that? I mean, you've gotten to meet some of your heroes on the road, and
it's bizarre to really like put it back into perspective every day, and because you just get so busy in everyday life, and I'm sure you're the same way sometimes. You get busy in your everyday job and what you're doing, and it just kind of it does become a job sometimes, but when you really slow down and like think, for you, Seth, when you were 16, it's like you never thought you'd be, like one of your break-in records was a Newsboys album.
Yeah.
Just to think about stuff. Would you ever have dreamed,
No,
and that's kind of
no
the same
way.
thing for me, so.
If I can take one thing away from listening to your story, it's kind of the advice of don't let pessimism step on your dreams.
Yeah.
And
because I tried.
Yeah.
There's that side of me that was like, there's not going to be anything come of this video. But I just, I was just like, God, you take it. Just and that you're exactly right. That's a great way to word it. I'm going to use that.
Yeah. I mean, we'll probably title the podcast that or something. But I think that's phenomenal because it's really easy to give up. I mean, that's the easy way out. And a lot of people listening to this right now, here's the sad fact is that 90% of the people who are listening to this right now maybe have a dream that will never be realized in their life.
Yeah.
Just because they cannot overcome the fear of
failure.
And
I think feeling inferior, that's something I've always struggled with, even as a guitar player or whatever it may be, but feeling inferior, and that's always this is kind of like a way I always sum up my story in a way, is that, when I sent all my stuff in, I was thinking, like, there are probably at least 100 guitar players sending stuff in that have been in bands and that have toured and that are established in the industry, that have a resume will blow mine out of the water. I mean, I've played in local bands and played at church and done some stuff here and there, but nothing of,
Sure.
I mean, you know what I mean? So I always like to tell kids that, or anybody that has a dream in anything. It doesn't even have to be music. Whether you're wanting to start a business or be a writer or be a producer, engineer, whatever, is, there's always going to be one. I like to tell kids, I like to be honest. There's always going to be a guitar player better than you. There's always going to be somebody better than you. Probably will always be someone that has a resume that's more impressive than you.
Yeah.
But I'm living proof that when you're meant to be somewhere and when God really wants you somewhere, you can throw resumes out the window.
Yeah.
I mean, because I'm living proof of that. And it doesn't matter, when you're supposed to be somewhere and he wants to place you there, it's going to happen.
I'm sure when John and Corey and Scotty were going through your your submission, it wasn't their resume that they were looking for. They were looking for, like you said, their heart.
Exactly.
What's the heart like?
Yeah.
It's not how many shows has he played or how good of a guitar player is he.
Mm-hmm.
I just think that is such a nugget of wisdom.
Yeah.
That I think any takeaway is, work on your heart, work on why are you doing what you're doing.
Exactly.
If you're in college and you don't know why, figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's really where you're meant to be, but maybe not.
Exactly.
So I love that you touched on that. Fast forward to today, what is it like to be on the road? Because you're married now.
Yeah.
And how is that being away from, your wife and people you care about all the time?
Yeah. So, that's one thing, diving in a little bit deeper to like that initial meeting with Tim. This is a lot of the stuff he mentored me about, it was like the reality of what it's like to tour, be a touring musician, be in a band, whatever. And that was one of the things he touched on, it's like, that's one of the sacrifices, obviously. So, yeah, I mean, it's not, I always feel like, and I always tell people, I guess if you're married, you both have to be wired for it, I think.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You both have to be, you both have to see the bigger purpose of why you're doing what you're doing. For me personally, and I think my band would agree with me, if we were just doing this, just like, or anybody, if you're in a band and don't really have any, I'm trying to figure out how to word it. Like if you don't really have any passion or purpose or ultimate goal to be doing while you're doing, I think it would be really hard to tour that hard. You know what I mean? And be away from, but when you're married, I love being a part of this band too, just because, I always had people like tell me like, man, you want to get with the right people or you want to get with the right band because it could be very hard to do this if you're, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So just kind of patting my bandmates on the back a little bit, John and Corey, Jen, and it's just all nice it's amazing to all have equal drive and equal passion to be doing what you're doing and seeing lives change around the world, in Russia.
Yeah.
And John tells this story of, you always have, like I said, you get into everyday life and you start thinking, it just kind of becomes show day, travel day, off day, show day. And then when you hear stories like this, it all kind of reels it back in. We were in Russia playing a show and somebody held up their phone and was recording. John tells a story before the song. We have a song called The Last Night, and he tells a story about what it's about. If you're not familiar with the song, you can look it up. But basically, it's just about like this girl feeling alone, and she was going to commit suicide, and basically coming to God in the song saying, "This is my last night." Like recorded his whole speech about the song, took it home, didn't understand English, took the recording home, translated it on Google Translate to Russian. They heard it and gave their life to God and like
wow.
and started. It's just bizarre,
Yeah.
It's just, and somebody sent us that in an email, I think, to our management. So when you hear stories like that, it's just like, man,
Yeah.
it's really bizarre that you're touching these lives all around the world, and I think that's what ultimately is my drive.
Yeah.
It keeps me going, and yes, it's hard to be away from family, from my wife, and I have my parents. I have a niece and nephew that are young and that I miss a lot, But ultimately, when you think about stuff like that, you're like, man, it's worth it, And and even what we've talked about here is just like, I want to be an encouragement to people that are wanting to do this, because I was that late teen and early 20s person that felt like I couldn't reach this.
Yeah.
And, I just felt like, how is it going to happen? It just feels so far reachable. And so I want to be that. I tell my wife, I always tell people, one of my biggest passions is I want to be that bridge or that stepping stone, as Tim was that stepping stone for me.
Right.
Right. Sometimes, you hear this a lot, but really sometimes your biggest blessings in life are the people God places in your path, or the people that, get placed in your life. And so that's one of my biggest passions too, is I want to be that person that can, if there's anybody that's wanting to do this and they feel like they can't reach their dream, and I want to be that bridge, that's one of my biggest passions too. So that is something that, drives me. And
that's phenomenal. And that's something that I really respect about you and what you're doing, is you're as interested in giving back to whoever the next Seth Morrison is going to be, because 2.5 years before you got the gig, you didn't know sitting in Starbucks that relationship with Tim was going to turn into what it is now.
Yeah, absolutely.
And maybe if Tim's listening to this, shout out to him.
Yeah. Timmy Rose, as Toby calls him.
Yeah, you guys should follow him. But yeah, I love your passion for mentorship and helping bring up the next generation of great touring guitar players who are going to travel the world and impact people through music. So maybe talk a little bit about what you're doing with that, because I've even, just kind of been watching you from afar, and you teach at a thing called Camp Electric every summer. Mm-hmm. You do Skype guitar lessons. What is it that drives you to do that? Because obviously just to go to Camp Electric, you're not doing it for the paycheck or anything.
Yeah.
But you're just showing up and...
Yeah, so I do try to do Camp Electric when touring permits. And for those of you who don't know what that is, it's just like a big camp in the summer where kids, I think it's 12 to 19, or I don't know if there's I guess 10 to 19, something like that, can just come, and different different artists or different players in the industry, artists come and they just teach a class. So, and that's kind of a platform for me to be able to share this story. And if I were their age and there was something like this to where I could have gone, paid to go and sit in a class with my favorite guitar player and ask questions or hold their guitar, or whatever it may be, I would have been for sure, that's my big passion for doing that every summer, is just to be able to pour into these kids and teens, that may be wanting to do this or have questions. And since then, you're right. Yeah, I have started doing guitar lessons via Skype when we're off the road.
Yeah.
That's all on my socials, on my Instagram and Twitter and stuff,
sure,
if you're interested. But
yeah.
But yeah, I've literally done some lessons. People have inquired about lessons. Some people want to learn. Some people want to learn solos to our songs. Some people just want to learn how to get technique stuff. I had a lesson a couple weeks ago. They just wanted exactly what we talked about. He's kind of at the place where I was, so I just shared my story and just encouraged him, and I have some lessons like that. So that's been a great platform. And I honestly, when I started doing the lessons, I didn't know that if it would become that. I thought people would just want to learn, scales or exercises, and for it to be used as a tool like that. And I've had another student that I really didn't know for a long time. They were just so great student, loved learning stuff. But I had their mom tell me not long ago, thanks for being a great role model. They've really needed this.
Wow.
And I'm just like, oh, wow. I didn't realize. And so it's been a great platform, and I've really enjoyed doing that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I really appreciate that, and that's one way that you're kind of living out that servant mentality. What does that look like on a show day? Because you talked about show days and travel days. I mean, for a lot of the people out there who really don't know what all goes into an hour Skillet show, what does a show day look like? Yeah,
so I think I would be speaking for every person that tours, is the hour or hour and a half of your show day of performing is probably the easiest part of your job, I guess. If we're on a tour, a typical day would be, you travel on buses, so wake up sometimes later than I want, of the time I want to admit.
It's like a black hole for those of you.
Yeah, it really is. I mean,
you're
sleeping in bunks, and there's no windows, so you really don't have any sense of what time of day it is.
Pretty powerful, musky smell.
Yeah. At times, if the Febreze has got to be on at your discretion. So wake up. I kind of chill for a few minutes in the bus, and get dressed and go into the venue. Maybe go to catering, get a coffee, you have dressing rooms, mostly just like if you're on an arena tour, it's like the basketball team. Well, you just posted about this, Seth. You set up in a writing session in a little closet, basically. Yeah. So a lot of times your dressing rooms are, just a locker room, like the basketball team locker room. So you that's your house for the day.
Yeah.
You wheel in your suitcase and you kind of find your corner in the dressing room or a locker and kind of man your space. And so I'll get set up and get ready for the day, and then maybe go have some lunch at catering. It's kind of funny, like in our band, everybody has their own dynamic. A lot of times, John and I see each other a lot throughout the day because we share a dressing room. But a lot of times we won't all really see each other till like showtime, just because John and Corey have their kids on the road, which is awesome. Jen and I are kind of like aunt and uncle to their kids, so it's cool. Sometimes Zave and I will have what we call boy time, where we like, he's really into. He loves. I'm a gamer too. I love playing games. He loves playing PlayStation.
That's awesome.
So we'll sometimes go play PlayStation, or we have like these exploration things to where. Like he loves Batman and superhero. He's very creative, so we'll kind of go out and just like explore an arena and like act like we're climbing the stairs of the arena, but we're not really climbing stairs. We're climbing a mountain, or you know what I mean. So we kind of make the most of our surroundings, and we'll have boy time. So sometimes I do that. Sometimes if I'm working on music or just practicing guitar, kind of go in. Every day's it can be kind of different.
Yeah.
If we're in a cool city, I always like to get outside. I love to get out of kind of the walls of the arena if it's a nice day out, and just go see what's around. Go to a coffee shop. I kind of like finding coffee shops that are close. So if any fans are ever wanting to say, hey, if you see a good coffee shops in town, good chance I might be there at some point during the day. I like malls, so sometimes I'll get a runner, go to a mall. It's just nice to get out sometimes, go see a movie, or just it's kind of refreshing to just get outside. And I mean, also, most of my fans know already, I'm a huge baseball fan, sports fan in general, but I love baseball. So if we're touring in baseball season, if there's a home game, I always get out, and try to go. I'm trying to visit all the stadiums.
That's awesome.
So I've been pretty successful so far. So
there's a tip for you Seth Morrison fans out there: buy him baseball tickets.
Yes, or Cincinnati Reds memorabilia.
Yeah,
like that always puts a good use.
That's awesome. So your days are pretty packed. Go do the show, hang with fans, that whole thing, and then get up and do it kind of all over again. I mean, how does your wife come with you on the road, or
we have been blessed that she has been able to actually, probably about the last half of last year. She was in grad school. She's a smarty. She was one of those people that is good for college because she knew what she wanted to do from day one. So she completed her bachelor's. We got married. She finished her bachelor's. We moved to Nashville. She went to grad school at Trevecca, actually, and she's a physician assistant now. So she literally just graduated last summer. So was able to. She's got to see a lot of the country with me. Yeah. We did Winter Jam West Coast. She got to go out there with me and see that side of the country she had never been. And we had like 3 off days in Seattle. Yeah. We got to explore, and it was awesome. She got to go to Alaska with me, see Alaska. So the last half of last year, she's got to go with me quite a bit, which has been awesome.
Yeah, I mean, that's a blessing because in the beginning, I mean, a lot of bands don't have, you guys are at a level where you can do that and get a couple buses and the whole deal. But when a lot of bands are starting out,
and a van
might be a lot of people listening to the show is traveling around in a 15-passenger van and a trailer, and you don't really have the luxury of that. But I mean, you've definitely put in your time in a van as well.
Yeah,
too,
I mean, Skillet was there years ago. I wasn't. I kind of paid. You call it paying your dues. I paid my dues, and I did a tour when I was traveling around in a Toyota Corolla with a bass cabinet, traveling as my passenger in the back seat. So, yeah, I've done that, and it's it wasn't fun.
Yeah.
It was fun, but it wasn't fun.
Yeah.
Literally, for people that are listening, wanting to do this, you're going to do tours like that. Yeah. You're going to do tours like that where you're not getting paid.
Yeah.
You're just doing it you're really doing it because you love it and hoping to get your name out there, meet people, and I've done the pay and the dues tours, and
what's the most, because I think even back to my days of touring, which feels like an alternate universe when I look at those pictures, I think about some of just the most awful shows on the face of the earth.
Oh my gosh.
Does one stand out to you as worse than all the rest?
Maybe. This is actually really funny. So this was I was very young. Obviously, we all play smaller shows on that level. About all of them. Every once in a while, you'll play like, oh man, we got 500 people here at this show, huge. Which feels huge. But you all play those smaller shows where it's like 75 people or. But
I'm talking 7 people.
Okay.
We had the other bands in the room, and that's who the
totally, and parents.
Yeah, and parents.
one of my, and I didn't even realize this, and my first band I was 13. I remember the night well. Like I even remember my mom took me to get like a new shirt and stuff because I went, I was 13, dropped me off. We were playing at this church, and my tri-state area where I'm from is like Ohio, Kentucky, West Virginia. Like if you draw a circle around those 3 states, it's like that's. So we were playing at a church in Kentucky. I was so pumped, like I'd never played out. Like I had practiced with the band and everything, and I never played out. So we get to this church set up, and there wasn't many people there, probably 30, 40 people. We're like youth group with some friends, kind of thing. So I was having a blast, man. I was like, man, this is amazing. Like, playing in front of people and stuff. And I was just having a ball, man. And then like our drummer's dad, he like kind of just like shut us down. He's like, all right, guys, we're done. I didn't know what happened. I never really knew what happened. And then we got down there, we loaded up, and we were leaving, going to eat or whatever. And we were like in the van, and I was kind of, you're like kind of jacked up. I was like, man, that was so fun playing live. And they were like, Seth, do you know what just happened? I was like, no, we just got kicked out of the church. Because, we were a Christian rock band. We weren't even like very heavy. It was kind of like pop rock. Yeah, It was like when No Doubt was right, kind of like that kind of stuff. And, so we were at one of those backwoods churches in Kentucky where
rock and roll
is exactly right. Yeah, it wasn't right. And like the youth pastor whatever came in and like just wasn't feeling it. So we just stopped, awesome. And I was like, oh, but I still had fun. So I'll never forget that.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I can't say that anyone ever pulled the plug on us. Probably should have. I mean, there was many times that I'm sure it didn't sound amazing. But fast forward to Skillet now, I don't think you guys are too worried about getting kicked off the stage for being too loud.
Yeah, I hope not. Yeah, we probably plenty of times. If now it's certain venues will have like a dB level. I guess that would be the closest you would come.
Yeah,
but you even push the envelope there a little bit.
Yeah, that's awesome. So as we're kind of closing out, Skillet's got a new record coming out.
Yeah, it's kind of I guess at this time, I would say 90% done.
Yeah.
Man, a couple more songs to go, but yeah, man, the majority of it's done, and this is another full circle moment. Well, no pun intended there. Whoa, didn't even think of that. Another full circle moment with this album is we've worked together in the studio.
Yeah.
You have quite a few co-writes on this album and produced a couple, and so that was awesome. That was awesome for me that night to get to come down and work with the team, and because we've kind of we'd known each other throughout our time in Ohio,
right?
Which we'll touch on all the little things here. But yeah, 2 Seths from Ohio, same age, guitar players.
Maybe we should tell the story about that.
Yeah.
That night we were recording at a studio called Castle Studio for the new Skillet record. Seth's got his wall of 52 guitar amps and 12 guitars and the whole deal.
You got to be prepared. You know what we're going to need.
Yeah. Crushed it. But then it's time to get dinner, and we ordered dinner, and then Jericho, I think, placed an order, and we got burgers or something like that.
I think we got the Mexican place.
The Mexican place, yeah. Okay, Mexican. And then it shows up. It's like, okay, there's 2 boxes. Seth, that's not really helpful. So then you look down. It says Seth M. That's not helpful either. Seth Morrison.
It was literally like 8 lines. It's like Seth M. from Ohio. Seth M. that's married.
Seth M. from Southern Ohio.
Seth M. from Southern Ohio that's married and plays guitar. And it's like, and then I think at the bottom you wrote something like, oh, forget it. I just look at
That was pretty awesome. But yeah, no, this has been the first record that our team's been able to work on for Skillet. We're coming from as much of a fan perspective as anything, because
it's been awesome. I remember meeting we had a mutual friend that you were working with at the time, and I remember coming to watch your band at it was like a hardware store turned church.
Yeah, that was one of those shows.
That's one of the shows. But I remember coming because, at the time, that's when I was like, what am I going to do? I'm wanting to play. And I think, I don't know what was happening with, you were maybe looking for some guitar players. So I came to meet you, and we met that night. So it was kind of weird. Like we always knew of each other.
Yeah.
We never really crossed paths a lot until like,
Yeah.
Now we're both here in Nashville and kind of living out our dreams. And with this album, it's been awesome to kind of full circle, I guess, does really kind of explain it very well.
Well, just in case, I don't think we've talked about this on the show or shared this yet, but the whole name of our production company, I kind of have a similar story to the other Seth M in the room here. Being from Southern Ohio, first concert and record I got was Newsboys' Take Me to Your Leader, which was 1995, I think.
Of course.
It came
that
out.
was one of my first, too.
And then fast forward to 2009, I think it was, moved to Nashville, and the first record I got to produce for a label was Newsboys' Born Again.
Yep.
And that's why our company is called Full Circle Music, because you just never know.
Exactly.
Things come around and God works in mysterious ways, and you never knew that the Tim thing would turn into this amazing, fruitful career you've had in Skillet, and who knows where it's going to go next, But it's been really inspiring. So thanks for being here and sharing your story. And one thing we want to leave the audience with today is the opportunity to get Seth's created a guide of top tips for making a career playing music. Does that sound cool?
Absolutely.
Something like that. So you can go get it at fullcirclemusic.org/guitar. We were going to make it fullcirclemusic.org/Seth Morrison, but then we figured people just spell your name.
Sometimes it's
ways.
one R, sometimes it's two S's. In Russia, they've wrote on my Starbucks cup Sith, S-I-T-H. So
Sith.
I'm like, that's kind of cool.
Like the
I'm a Star Wars character, Seth Morrison. I kind of like it.
That's amazing. So go to fullcirclemusic.org/guitar, and you'll get some tips that Seth has personally created for making a career playing music. And we'll also send you, as a little bonus for that, the opportunity to connect with Seth for some guitar lessons on Skype. Are you okay with that?
Absolutely.
Always looking for new
students?
students?
Yeah, I think we're working on some mailing list stuff too, if you'd be interested in getting on that. So yeah, man, doing a lot of stuff to help out some people that are that were in my place, 7 years ago or whatever. So
well, that's awesome, man. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to come and do this. I know you're a busy man touring. And are people going to be able to see you at Camp Electric this summer? Or?
I hope. So we're touring in Europe all of June, and we'll just be getting back when it starts. So
maybe,
maybe I'm going to reach out to them. If not the first week, I think the second week, hopefully. But I literally haven't talked to them yet. But I'm always, when my schedule allows, I'm always up for being there. So it's a good possibility.
Where are you guys going to be in Europe in June?
Oh man,
everywhere.
Czech Republic, France. We're doing all the rock festivals over there, like the big rock festivals, so like Germany, Rock am Ring, Download Festival. Yeah.
So if you're a fan listening in Europe, you got an opportunity to come meet Seth next summer or this summer in June 2016. So thanks again for being here and taking the time.
It's been fun.
Again, for those of you listening, go to fullcirclemusic.org/guitar and get those tips from Seth. You've been listening to the Full Circle Music Show, produced by Full Circle Music Company with editing help from Jericho Scroggins. Again, head over to fullcirclemusic.org/guitar to get Seth Morrison's tips for making a living in the music business, playing guitar for a rock band. Again, fullcirclemusic.org/guitar. Head over to iTunes, leave us a good rating and review, and we'll see you next week.